Wheel of Time showrunner Rafe Judkins has broken his silence and issued a lengthy statement in response to Amazon canceling the show. Roll this up over at phantompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. And to be clear, I think his statement is a bunch of giant cope. I think he lies multiple times or tries to spread a narrative that is untrue. But this is what he posted over on Instagram. Judkins began by addressing whether or not he knows why the show was canceled by Amazon. He claims he does not know. He wrote, "And the truth is, I don't know. I wish I could say something clear and tidy that explains to all those who love it why it's coming to an end, but sadly, I can't." I think that's a bunch of bogus. I'm pretty sure that Amazon gave him an explanation and told him why they were canceling the show. He's likely either not able to say or he doesn't want to say. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the show had clearly waned in popularity and viewership, and we have a ton of data to show that, despite what Judkins tries to spin, because he would later say that it was also watched by huge numbers of people all over the world, appearing in the Nielsen top 10 for nearly 20 weeks, a feat very few shows have been able to match in the last decade. So clearly trying to spin a narrative that lots of people were watching this show. And I'm not going to dispute that there was not significant interest in the show. I was obviously interested in the show, loved the books, did indeed check it out, despite all the things I had seen from the script, the rumors, etc., and how they were going to basically botch the entire show, the race swapping, the DEI agenda, the woke, all that stuff. I still was going to check it out, and I did. I think I watched the first 3 episodes or whatever during that season 1 premiere, and we saw Nielsen reported that that 3-episode premiere did attract 1.163 billion minutes viewed. Huge numbers there. Those were big numbers there. However, fast forward to the season 2 premiere, it's down to 515 million minutes watched, a decrease by over 50% there. Massive declines. Similarly, the season 3 premiere, which also debuted 3 episodes, it only brought in 534 million minutes watched. I actually thought that was kind of interesting. I thought it was going to go down, but obviously it did have more minutes viewed compared to the season 2 premiere. However, if you look at how Nielsen tracks, that could be people watching from the very first episode of season 1, because Nielsen doesn't track based on seasons. It tracks based on the entire show. So that season 3 number, it could be including season 1 and season 2 episodes as well, which we obviously typically see that if you look at the data that Netflix releases when they release a new season. You do see people watching that first season, and you see them watching it in significant numbers, or at least watching the previous season as well. It doesn't have to just be season 1, depending on how deep they are into the season. And I think this is the case because we do have some numbers here. Also from Nielsen, they published a top 100 most watched shows for the 2024-25 season. And then also most watched shows in the 18 to 49 age demographic. Wheel of Time did not show up in the top 100 most watched shows for the 24-25 TV season. It did show up in the 18 to 49 age demographic. It was tied for 98th. It was at the very bottom of the list, tied with Power Book 3, Raising Kanan. Never even heard of it. CBS's Watson show, and then some Paramount Plus show called School Spirits, which again, never even heard of that. Only brought in 1.9 million viewers. Abysmal viewership for that show. So to put that in perspective, Prime Video's Reacher was 8th on the 18 to 49 age demo chart with 5.9 million viewers. So that means Wheel of Time performed nearly 70% worse than Reacher in that age demographic. Furthermore, Reacher attracted 17.3 million viewers among all age demographics, which was good for the 4th most watched show of the entire 24-25 season, which ended in like the beginning of April. The show also performed worse than other Prime Video shows in the 18 to 49 demo, such as Invincible, which saw viewership at 4.4 million, Rings of Power, which was 3.8 million, Beast Games, 3.7 million, Cross, 3.6, On Call, 2.3, The Bondsman, 2.2, and Secret Level, 2 million. So all these other Prime Video shows, Amazon MGM Studio shows, performed way better than The Wheel of Time. And some of those shows, I would wager, cost a lot less than The Wheel of Time. So clearly getting better return on investment with some of these other shows than Wheel of Time. Furthermore, when it was announced that Wheel of Time was getting scrapped, they were not going to renew it for a 4th season. Deadline's Nelly Andriva claimed the show was canceled due to finances. She wrote, as often is the case in the current economic environment, the reasons were financial, as the series is liked creatively by the streamer's executives. I probably also think that there is something to do with the fact that Jennifer Salke was left the company, basically removed, fired, etc., whatever you want to call it. And I think Wheel of Time was one of her woke babies that she had incubated. And with her gone, the show lost that protection. And I think also clearly it needed that protection because the viewership was absolute garbage because they ruined the show. They ruined the books. It was an absolute terrible adaptation that we know from Judkins' mouth himself that he turned it into LGBTQ plus propaganda. And that's another thing that he lied about too in this post, this response. So he went on in his Instagram message saying that one of my core goals in making the show, even from the earliest crafting of the pitch, has been to tell the whole story. Because the Wheel of Time books do what television has always done best, get better as they go. And as our actors and team came on board, they too could see the potential if we were allowed to finish this incredible story. So that's absolutely not true whatsoever. He had no intention of actually telling the whole story. We know this because he literally race swapped the characters with the casting, and then he completely changed their characters. I mean, Perrin was absolutely done dirty. They have him killing a wife that he never had in the 3-episode premiere of the show. So we know that's not the case. And then furthermore, he admitted that the show was LGBTQ plus propaganda, and that was his goal in an interview that he gave to The Hollywood Reporter to promote this 3rd season just earlier this year. While speaking about his decision to make Moraine and Siwon into sodomizers, he told The Hollywood Reporter, "It felt essential that their relationship be textual. It was one of the most important relationships in the books for how it drives plot. It's almost like the inciting incident of the show is contained within the relationship between these two. To me, the show didn't make sense without that relationship being explicit because we are also putting more of the emphasis certainly on Rosamund Pike's character Moraine than there is in the books." It's just absolutely ridiculous trying to claim that that's the inciting incident of the show. Ridiculous. Clearly not trying to tell the whole story. Clearly trying to rewrite it and rewriting it in this LGBTQ plus image. He then also went on and said, "You're also always looking as an artist for why am I telling this story? I have to devote my life to this for years and years. It was worth devoting my life to telling this beautiful story, but also that the lead was a queer character. I've never seen a fantasy show where our lead was just casually a queer character that wasn't only directed at the queer community. To have that was an important part of why I wanted to tell the story and why I fell in love with the books in the first place." Earlier in the interview, he justified denigrating Jordan's work by claiming the books were coded as gay. He said a lot of it also, this is the 90s and early 2000s, was very coded. It's always women are pillow friends. They're not lesbians, but it's all there. When you're reading it, it felt like a big billboard signs of these are queer stories, these are queer characters, especially in comparison to all the other fantasy I've been reading. For me, it was very important to find that in the show today. I feel like part of our job as artists who are adapting something is to bring it to life, not just word for word, but to also bring its context to life. So again, not trying to tell the story, right? He's admitting it. He's creating his own context and injecting it into it. Anyways, he went on and said, and the context of Wheel of Time in the 90s is very different from the context of reading the books today. He's just completely just making it up, admitting it there that he's making it up. He goes on and tries to claim, remember, he's trying to claim that that was the context in the 90s and that somehow it's changed today when his interpretation is wrong in both cases. Anyways, he said, I wanted to infuse that into the show and hopefully let people who weren't seeing themselves in other fantasy shows see themselves in Wheel of Time. So clearly, making it clear that was what he was trying to do. And then he went on to admit one of his main goals with the show was to normalize sodomy. And he attempted to justify it with an alleged quote from Robert Jordan, which I think he completely and totally made up. I think he lied. This guy's a liar. That's something that we've tried to infuse into the world of the show, and it's something that comes from the books. Robert Jordan once famously just said casually, I would say 30 to 50% of people in the world of the Wheel of Time are probably not straight. There is no evidence for that quote whatsoever. If you do any kind of searching for it, Rafe Judkins is the source of that quote. That is a complete and total fake quote that he made up. Anyways, he continues saying that's a huge thing that he was doing. We're trying to infuse that in the show and not make it feel like the exception to a rule, but make them feel like a natural and central part of our world. So clearly trying to normalize this sinful, disordered behavior and lifestyle and actions. So he's a liar. The guy's a liar. Nevertheless, back to his Instagram post here. He went on and said, much has been written about this larger trend in TV toward fewer seasons with less episodes and finding quicker ways to acquire additional streaming subscribers. But I genuinely believe that this goes against the fundamental strength of television. Long-form storytelling it is an art form, much like epic fantasy, which at its very best gives people a place to go and spend time with the characters that they love year after year after year. And I believe there are executive studios and networks who know that. I believe that we will find our way through this current iteration of the industry and back to what we do best, bringing great characters into people's living rooms and lives every week. I actually agree with him on this. I think he is indeed right. I think that you can definitely earn brand loyalty. You can earn, if you do it right. If you do it right, Wheel of Time is not an example of doing it right. It's an abomination to the books. He clearly admits that he was trying to push LGBTQ propaganda, and we saw people just leaving the show en masse. We just looked at the data right there. So not an example of doing it right. But when you do it right, I think he is right in this assertion, but he didn't do it right. And I think there's obviously a lot of history that backs this up. I mean, you look at Star Trek and how it found massive success when it went into syndication, and people were able to kind of watch it on a weekly basis as well, not just when it was airing, but again, when it was in syndication. You see shows finding that success. And then you can look at other examples too. I think Stranger Things, probably the biggest example. Also Game of Thrones, you can point to that until it had a horrible ending with that show. But clearly it grew its audience over time. Both those shows did, I think, and made their respective, I don't know, I wouldn't consider HBO a streamer, but their respective networks, I guess, more popular, right? I think Stranger Things definitely got people hooked into Netflix, and I think Game of Thrones significantly increased subscribers to HBO when it was at the top of its game, and then obviously before it fell off with those last couple seasons. Judkins then concluded saying, will the Wheel of Time get to do that with another network and finish the story? Sadly, it's not something that happens often, but it does happen. In fact, one of the reasons we first chose Amazon as a home for the show was because they were in the midst of picking up The Expanse after Sci-Fi canceled it. So who knows, perhaps the Wheel of Time show will do what the books have always managed to do since day one, defy the traditional definitions of beginnings and ends. I certainly hope it does, because this book series and these fans deserve to see the story finished. I hope it does not. I hope it does not get picked up at all. Show is an abomination. People clearly are not interested in it. Viewership, I think, is obviously in decline. We have the data there that shows that. And if we do have a beginning, I hope it's a new beginning without Rafe Judkins, without someone who is trying to malign Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time, and actually does it justice. But I think he has done significant harm to the Wheel of Time IP, as we've seen Amazon do significant harm to the Lord of the Rings IP, as well as Warner Brothers with their War of the Rohirrim film. These companies are doing significant harm, despite the fact that there was an audience, and I think we saw that with the season 1 premiere. There was an audience that wanted a legitimate and good Wheel of Time show, and they completely and totally failed on that front. And I think it's going to take a number of years before people kind of forget this abomination and how terrible it was, and get people hyped, interested in a new Wheel of Time show, if they even do that, because of how poor this adaptation was. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.
Why would you be afraid of the people? Why are you not afraid of God instead of man?